Hello everyone, welcome back to this Building Up Your Own HMI and PLC series video. In this video, we will discuss the number 7 topic, how can we program one sample project by using Ignition/HMI. And in this video, I will show how can we program Momentary Button and Toggle Button, and how can we use the indicator to show the actual status of the motor. And I will use the tank and this bar to show the level of the water. And also I will show how can we draw the motor, pipeline, and the valve. So this is the typical HMI components. We have buttons, indicators, slide bar, and the symbols for showing the pictures. And as well as the buttons allows us to jump to the different pictures. Alright, let's start. Let's go to the ignition. Let me show how can we start up this sample project. So from this tag, this area, we have integer data and we have a couple float. Okay, let me declare couple bool signal so I can demonstrate use button to turn on or turn off, or momentary give a trigger signal to one bool variable. Then let's go to the PLC side, the TwinCAT. This GVL here. So let's create motor start push button. And motor stop push button. And then the motor control. Okay, I create 3 variables here. And then let's go to the main. Okay, this time let me create another program method. So we can call this and motor. Okay, and motor. And from here I can create very simple logic. Say GVL dot this control signal equal to the GVL dot we can use the push button. We can use the push button or this latch in signal itself and use the negative logic GVL dot stop signal. Okay. This is a very simple logic. So if I give a push signal, this is the momentary signal, right? And without this stop signal, so the motor, this control signal will be on, it will latch in itself. Okay? And if I turn on shortly this stop push button signal, so it will disconnect this logic, turn this motor control signal off. This is a very simple latch in signal. Okay? Also, let me create another enable signal. We can use this enable signal as the toggle button demonstration. So I can call this motor control enable. Okay, this is enable signal. So this enable signal, so those logic is based on this enable signal must be on. So we can make a bracket here. And we can even enter to the second line, so this much clear. And this is a global enable signal, for example, GVL dot. Okay, if this enable signal off, so this end logic will turn this motor control off. If this motor control need to be on, so the motor control enable signal must be on already, and then we can click the start button. Okay, this is very simple logic. And then don't forget, from the main, we need to call this method here, motor. Okay, motor. Okay, motor. Okay, then we can download. Again, to allow the OPC UA publish all those variables. The better way I figure out, let's download the hardware configuration. I know this is a little bit annoying because after you click this active configuration, your entire system need to restart. But this is the best way I figure out. You probably can use another alternative way without this active configuration needed, but you definitely need to refresh your OPC UE that interface. That maybe need other additional operation. So download this hardware configuration. This is the best way I figure out. Okay, let's click this active configuration. Start the controller. And in the meantime, and then we can go to the ignition. So the controller is restarting. So we will see the status changed. And then we can click this add browse device. And from this OPC UE, PLC1, and GVL, so we can see those new variables got updated. Then we can drag them to this GVL. You can also create another folder to separate. For example, I can create a folder named motor. Okay, I add this motor control. Start, stop, enable, and then control. So let's firstly drag this control enable. So I can use the two-state toggle button. Okay, and this two-state toggle button, we can double click and change the word. Now it's named on and off. We can change the word disable and enable, right? So I can change the name disable. Motor disable. Okay, and this name motor enable. Okay, and also you can change the color. Here you can change the color. Okay, and when it's enable, we can change the color. Okay, and this is the toggle button. So here the name is named two-state toggle button. Okay, and then we can drag this start and stop push button. So once we release here, go to the control that named the one-shot button. Okay, this is the motor start one-shot button. So here I can name that this is one-shot motor start. Push button. Okay, and then I can drag this motor stop push button. Control one-shot. Okay, motor stop push button. Alright, we put this 3 buttons. In the meantime, when the motor enable, that allows us to click this start. We can connect that enable signal to this button properties enable here. I like this feature. For example, in your system, maybe some button you need to log in and then allows the operator to click this button to turn on or turn off. Most of cases, what I saw in industry area, those buttons will be assigned or configured as the invisible. So that will be a little bit annoying because without the login, you will never know there's one button showing or hide there. So for the long-term run, someone will forget there was a button here. Till you log in, then this button show up. I'm not quite like this idea. So that's why I'm pretty like this idea. You can use one bool to control this enable. You can still see this button, but without this button enable, you cannot control that. You can see this button, right? So we can click this link and go to the tag, find out my GVL and this motor control enable. Okay, so as we can see now, this enable is off. That's why this button is showing the live status. So it's showing the disable, and this button I cannot click. Okay, make sure this is a double direction. Okay, let's toggle to the preview mode, and then we can enable the button. So we'll see this motor control enabled. Then this motor start push button that highlight. And now let's watch this status, and let's watch this start push button status and this motor control. So according to our logic, once I turn this start push button on, or basically we want a trigger signal or a short the pulse signal, then we want this motor control stay on. So let's see what the actual status. So there will be a slight issue at here. I like to explain especially at here. Now let me click this motor start. Okay, I click the motor start, so we can see the motor control turn on, no problem. However, this start push button locked at on. This button is set to on rather than give a pulse signal. So if we go to the properties of this button, if we go to the design mode, click here, watch carefully about the properties here. This button is named one shot. If we go to the right side, find out the button, this one shot button, this button is used to control, to set a value and wait for the PLC to reset this variable. Okay, so you need to be very carefully. So this button, it doesn't have a function to reset this tag. It only used to set a value, write one value to this variable. Okay, actually I like this function because especially for the big system, for the plant system, usually the HMI will set a value to the PLC. And when the PLC receives this 1, then the PLC will reset this variable to be off. This can make sure the PLC can receive this signal and then set this variable to off. Okay, because if the communication, the network is very busy, some cases, if you set a very short pulse, maybe your HMI command cannot send successfully to the PLC. Especially for the remote communication or the large plant system, using the momentary button and using the pulse command. So personally, I like this one shot, the set function from the HMI. So to use that, we can go to the PLC side. And under this control logic, we need to add the logic. We need to set 0 to this variable. So very simple way, we can just equal to false. And this stop function, push button function, is also the similar idea. Okay, make sure this logic at the very bottom of your entire logic, this entire cycle, you set on, okay, no problem, it's still working at 1. And eventually at the bottom of this entire logic or at the bottom of the main, you reset all the command from the HMI. Okay, so we can click and log in the logic. Log in logic, it won't restart the controller. Okay, we have this logic, and now if we go back to here, so we will see the logic is working. It reset the start push button. Click to the run mode, and then I click the start, so it start. Okay, I click the stop, so it stop. You will see the motor stop, right? I click start, okay, I click the stop, okay, the motor stop. I click the start, and if I click this disable, we will see this control will turn off. That's the logic work. Okay, disable the motor control. If I move to this way, if I turn the motor on, we will see the motor enable on. If I turn on this motor start push button, so we'll see just one cycle, this button turn on, this variable turn on, so it turns this motor control on, it latch in itself. So we will see this variable on, okay? So if I click this motor stop push button here, it will work just one cycle. You won't see that, but it will turn this motor control off. Okay, that turn off. This is the one shot button. If you are going to use the one shot button, you need to put this logic. Okay? Another alternative way, without using those reset logic, I can comment out. Go to this command bar, right click, we can turn this on, text editor. Okay, we can use this common or uncommon. So we can click this common, then we can comment them off. Okay, don't forget, log in the logic. So without using this reset logic from the PLC side, then from the HMI area, we cannot use this anymore. So we can delete this. And then let's use the momentary button. Instead of using this way, right click, click this control. Instead of using this, we can manually configure. Go to the right side of the button, and we can find this momentary button. Okay, let's drag this momentary button here. And then we can drag this start button over this button. Then it can connect all those variables. Okay, I like this feature. So the button name from this test, we can call that motor start, push button. Push button, okay? And the on color, we can drag another momentary button and drag this motor stop push button over this button, okay? And we can see it automatically connected. And automatically connected, we can double click, we can see it automatically link this motor stop push button, okay? And then we can change the name, motor stop push button, okay? Okay, and now we can click the run mode, and I turn on, we will see it only give a momentary turn on, a short pause, the motor start, okay? It latch in this motor control signal. You can watch this variable here, I can click, so it only turn on very shortly, and while the logic is turn this motor control off. Okay, this is the momentary button. Now let's talk about the status of the button, the background of the button. Ideally, once we click this button, motor start, if the motor started, this motor control started, or we have a real feedback, then we like this button shown as a green. If the motor at the stop status, we like this button shows as a red, right? So the status of this button, we need to connect it with the status feedback or status output variable. Okay, then let's go to the design mode, and we can see. So this is the control value. That means once we click this button, the variable connected at here will be controlled. So we will see, because this is the momentary button, this momentary button, it will trigger 2.5 seconds. So it will turn on 2.5. Okay. Then we'll see the indicator value. This indicator value is a value to control the status of this button. Okay. Then if we click, we will see, okay, it's connecting the same variable because we drag this variable over this button, right? So actually we need to connect to the motor control. The motor control, that's the result. Okay, we'll assume this motor control turn on, that means motor is running. Okay, so we can click this. And we can see here, this variable, we just use this variable to indicate the status. So we just need one direction. So we can check off this bi-direction. Okay. And also we can see the on color, that means indicator value when is on, we can show as the green. We can show as a green. And the background color, we can also show as a link. We can link to this variable. We can link to the motor control. So when this motor control equal to 0, we can show as a gray, right? So we can show, or white, the same color as the background. But once it's equal to 1, we can show as green. Okay. So background color and on color. On, that is this frame. But background color, this is the entire button color. So we can see it run. And once we click to on, boom, motor started. So we will see the button shows green. Okay. Same idea if we configure this, So we want this indicator value firstly equal to the motor control, this value. And when it is off, so I want to show this background color connect with this tag. So once equal to 0, we want to show the dark gray or the red. For example, if I like to show the red, and when it's 1, we can show the transparency or the same as the background color. Okay, so let's click to run mode. So we can see click, okay, run, green. If I stop, the motor stop is showing like this. Okay, run and stop. And the reason why this is a frame, this is red, because we are connecting this. So we can turn this frame to a gray. Okay, so it won't cause the confuse. So we can turn on. So now it changed to gray. Okay, motor started and click, the motor stop. Okay, that basically makes sense. In the meantime, maybe you like to use one indicator to show the motor status, right? So the easy way, or most of cases, to show the I/O indicator values, so we can use just a very simple circle. For example, we can use this circle. Okay, we click and we can drag a circle, or we can set the real size. We can right click this size and the position. We can set this size to 25 to 25. Okay, and we can write some static text. We can use the label. Okay, display label. Double click. Okay, and we can write this. This is the motor. Okay. If I organize a little bit, frame here, set this field paint to transparency. This field paint to transparency. Okay. Transparency. Okay. So this is the motor status. Okay. We can also set the font. Okay. We can click to run mode, and we enable the motor. We can start up the motor. Okay. So to change the background color of this indicator, so we can click this circle and the field pane. So click this field pane. Okay, click this link. Firstly, let's find out the variable. Okay, variable. This is the motor control. And when this equal to 0, we can show as the gray. Okay. And when it's equal to 1, we can show as a green. Okay. Let's click this run mode. If I turn on the motor, we will see, okay, motor turn on. If I stop, the motor status shows gray. Basically, this background color, we can set the same. So this is the indicator, enable toggle button, and the momentary button. Those elements are very common used in the HMI screens. Okay, and those values are also very common. Okay, you can set a value, and all those I/O fields are also common. Okay, we can clean this I/O field. Let's redo a little bit. For example, this is the motor, right? So we can put here, and we can clean them. I can delete all of them. And now let's move to the object symbols. For example, the tanks, pipes, or any other motors or switches. I can draw a tank. Okay, so I can click this component library, and we can find the pump or the tanks. Okay, we can drag a valve. Okay, and also we can find a motor, for example, of this pump. Okay, we can drag to here, and then we can find the elements, for example, the level indicator and the cylinder tank. So the level indicator and the cylinder tank, we can drag them out. Okay, so we can organize something. This is a very simple process. For example, this is our pump, right? And this is the valve. And then we can draw some pipes here. So we can go to the library and find out the pipes. And then we can pick the horizontal one and this one. Okay, so just try to draw a nice picture here. Okay, so this is the basic idea. We can show the water level. For example, if I'm gonna use this real value, this new one as the water level value, I can click and drag to this tank here. Okay, and once we click, we can see it automatically connect this value. Okay, if now I set 10, I can see, so it's showing this water level. Okay, and the properties of here, you can set the maximum and the minimum. Set the capacity of the tank. So the capacity set at 100. Once we have a value 10, that means 10% here. And in the meantime, the same idea as this scale. Capacity is 100. We can also drag this float value to here. Okay, so we can see it's 10%. Okay, the same idea. And if this is a value we like to set directly, for example, this is a Setpoint, and we can drag this value to here. Okay, and this will automatically pop up. Then we can click the control. We can click this numeric test field. Okay, this test field allows us to type in the value. Okay, for example, this is your motor VFD control the frequency set point, right? So we can set here. You can set the maximum and the minimum value, and you can make this bigger. Okay, you can set this font to a higher. Okay, and in the meantime, we can drag another thing. We can set a scale. For example, control spinner or the slider. Okay, we can set this slider. Okay, the slider. This is a horizontal style. You can also set as a vertical style. So you can go to this horizontal slider. You can take it off and reorganize this size. For example, we can set like this. Because we automatically drag here, this value properties has been connected with the variable. You can also change that in case you need. This is a new one, this value float. Okay, click. And if we turn to the run mode, this value icon here allows us to type in. For example, if I set directly 20, so we will see the 20 also read back at this water level area. Okay, this slide bar also allows us to set something. It's easy to set up and down. So this is a very simple HMI elements. It can show something, and also we can set something here. And using this slide bar and using this water tank, this style, we can show the analog value, right? And the push button, we can set something on and off, or using the indicator, we can show the actual status of the variable. And the toggle button, you can enable or disable something. Okay, those are very essential elements. Basically, they could cover 70% or even 80% important elements you daily use. Then let me show another simple thing. That's the change screen. So for example, this is the main screen. Say if I turn to the design mode. Okay, this is the main screen. And another screen, for example, now if I copy this screen as a second screen, paste, I can rename the second screen. Let me call this the motor operation. Okay, I copy this screen as a motor operation. Okay, this icon shows when we start up the HMI, where the client, the screen with the icon will run as a startup screen. Basically, for the entire HMI project, we only need one screen as a startup screen, right? So if we want to use this main as a startup screen, so we can take this off. So we can right click, click this open as the startup. We can turn this off. So once we active the client will only start up this main screen. And then the main screen will be used as the main navigator screen. So from this main, we can jump to other screens, right? So how can we from the main screen jump to this motor operation screen? Okay, so I can delete something just to show some difference between the main and the motor operation. For example, the motor operation, I can delete all those tags. Okay, only leave the motor. Okay, and the screen name I can change as the motor operation. Okay. Okay, the second screen is named the motor operation, and the main screen it shows a global view. Alright, to jump from the main screen to the motor operation, we can use the button. Okay, let's go to the button area, and we can pick the button, drag to the button. So this button has a multiple available to set different functions. We can use this button. We can firstly rename this button. We can change the name to go to motor. Okay, we can set a smaller, for example. Go to motor. Okay, and then we can double click this button. We can configure the action. So we can go to the mouse, and when we click this mouse, okay, we can turn on this open swap, and we can use this window function. So we can jump to the motor operation. So using this configuration, once we click this button, it can jump to the motor operation, the second screen. Okay, click. And then from this motor operation screen, we can configure another button. We can jump back. Okay, so here, and we can write the main, go to main. Again, double click this button. We can configure, we can activate this open swap, and we can jump back to the main screen. Okay, the main screen. This is this name. Click. Okay, so we have two screens, and we have a button jump back and forth. Let's see how that run. Okay, go to the main. Let's click the preview mode. Okay, now that's the preview mode. We can click this button, go to motor. Boom, we jump to the motor operation. Okay, we can click the motor turn on and turn off. Okay, then let's jump back to the main screen. So boom, jump back to the main screen. So those are very essential functions. Okay, the last things, so probably you like to run this client screen, running as just a runtime system, right? So from the engineering, this designer area, we can click this tool, go select this launch window. Okay, then this style is similar as the client. Okay, so we will see the similar client style. Again, I'm state as my laptop, the engineering laptop. So I'm using this engineering designer tool running as the client, something like a simulation, but it's not a real client, but run as similar as a client style. Because officially you should use the Ignition client software to remote open the Ignition server. So that's a little bit complex for the new learner. So temporarily, we are using the engineering laptop and run this client as the preview mode, as a temporary test mode. So you can quickly verify the HMI style and what that looks like in the actual client view style. This is exact the same looks if you use the client to watch this HMI. Okay, click this button. So this button jump to the motor operation. Click this go to main, it can jump back to the main. And we can control the motor, and also we can slide the bar running this HMI system. Okay, and from this command, you can log out or you can exist, or you can from here to switch the window. Okay, for example, now I can click this exist, can turn off this client style. And the last but not the least, how can we use the client software to open this entire HMI project and turn to the running mode? Okay, so we can go to the client. Then we will use the client software. So before we go to the client software, we need to double check one thing, that is the login property setting. Go to the project properties here and go to the general and go to the security setting. So make sure this identity provider, we can select the default. Maybe it's set as a none. And also double check the user source, at least you set this default. So what does it mean of this default? So let's firstly click the OK. So let's set this security setting first. Okay, you said OK. Then let's go to my controller, the ignition software where that installed. Okay, let me shift to my PC. So I'm using the remote desktop. Okay, I'm jumped to my remote PC here. So browse is a localhost 8088. And let's jump to the configuration. Let's check admin, login. Let's check the username setting. So the username setting, let's go to the security here, general. So we'll see the system identity provider here that's set default. So what does it mean of this default? So let's go to the user and the roles. So here, let's set the group name. So default is this user and the roles group name. So this default, that's a direct setting we just did from the project properties. We select this general and this security setting default. So this default directly connected with this. This is the default. So what does it mean behind this default? Okay, so we can click this more and click this manage users. So we can see this user that named admin and its roles that is administrator. And we can add it and we can change the password. Okay, here. So you can add a new role or you can add a new user here. Okay, for example, admin is your system management system username and password. But the username for the operator only, you can set as the user 1, user 2, user 3 with a different password, right? So you can add a user. And then from the HMI, you can still set the default. Okay, the default, behind this default, it has this managed user. There's a lot of things behind here. You can set different user and the roles. This is a similar idea as a Windows system. So this is the place to set this system identity. And then from the engineering system, and then from your engineering system, and from this project properties here, so once you set this default, and once you turn on the client, then you can log in via the user you set under this default. Okay? Then how to activate the client? So if you recall, when we install the ignition software, we firstly installed this ignition installer. And then we install the designer. The designer software basically will be installed into your engineering laptop or engineering computer. And then for the client system, you can use another laptop. For example, you can use one monitor, has a Windows system, or just use this local PC. So the server installed here, and also you will run the client at this PC. So for example, if now I'm going to use the client to browse, to run the HMI system I created. So I can double click this Vision client launcher, this software after I installed. Double click, and I will use this client to browse the server I configured. So we can click this add application. Okay, wait for the system to browse. If your client and the server not in the same computer, so then you can manually type in the address here. For example, HTTP. This is the IP address of the server IP address. Don't forget 8088. Okay, so we will see once I type in this, it will show the host valid. If you are using the client and the server in the same PC, so you can search this local. It browses my local host, this gateway. Okay, I can click select the gateway. Select the gateway first. And then if you recall, under this gateway, I could have a multiple project. So currently I only have one project. This is SCADA07 1. We just did the configuration. So I can click this add clients. Okay, then we will have this project. under this client list. So here I can click this small dot and click this create shortcut. So next time we can click this shortcut, then we can directly start the client. Or we can double click here, we can start up the client. So I can click this shortcut. So if you throw this shortcut in your Windows system startup list, then every time the Windows system start up, it will start up this client. And this client software will browse the server HMI project. Okay. So now let's wait for shortly. And wait for it starting up. Alright, if this is the first time you log in into your client, so the system will ask you to type in the username and the password. Under the default, my username, that's the admin, and the password, that is the same as the admin. So I will type in admin. So we can log in, click this login. Then we will see, this is the HMI, okay? If you are using the trial license, under here, it will show the trial license and the trial time remaining here. It noticed you how long your trial license remaining, okay? And we can click the button, jump to the different screen, and you can click this button and to operate your system. So this is the HMI, and the logic actually running at the TwinCAT PLC system. So this is my PC, right? In this PC, it's also run the role of the PLC. This PLC is Beckhoff TwinCAT 3 PLC. At the right corner, we can see the PLC status. So it is running this motor logic and this sign calculation here. Alright, this is a very brief demonstration for the ignition HMI. So we will see basically half an hour, you can create a very simple project, and basically you can use the trial license for this practice and for this hands-on demonstration. Alright, thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please give me a thumb up. If you like to watch more videos in my channel, please subscribe and hit the bell. Thank you for watching.